What's going on, everybody? We are back and we are here to talk to y'all about the meta. Things have kind of settled a little bit. We are kind of seeing where things are landing after Adepticon. And Phil is back in the States. So we are ready to crank some more content out for you guys. It's great to have you back, Phil. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. The jet lag, thankfully, I planned it out. I'm good to go. I'm feeling good. I just played 40K last night. Like, I got in Tuesday. I got in Monday during the day, and then I was playing 40K again on Tuesday because I had the itch. I was just like sitting there making lists and doing all that stuff. So I was excited to be back and get a game of 40K in.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, I know it sounded like you were going to go to, Lions. Is that what you played last night?
It is what I played last night. So I have
Yeah.
a couple lists I've been toying around with. I think I've cracked it in terms of what I think is probably close to one of the best setups for Lions. I'll talk about that probably later, not in this video, but somewhere else. But I think I've figured it out, what works for me. And then I'm excited to get that in teams potentially, or I might run G Circle still. It depends on our team setup, but yeah, it's going to be really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I am excited to see your golden boys get on the table. It should be good. But all right. So why don't you lead us off talking about the meta? Where are we at now? We were a couple weeks in. Adepticon just went down. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so believe it or not, Orcs is still at the top of the meta. And it's not just Mordaka right now that is leading the charge in terms of their win rate. Orcs overall are very good. It does not surprise me in the slightest of um, like what it is that we're seeing on the matchup. Dread Mob, only one player's playing it. They played 3 games. They went 2-1, 67% win rate. That's not what we're looking for. That's not good information. The next one up, and what is carrying this faction, is Mordaka. They have 247 games played right now with a player count of 50, which is one of the highest across. And then in terms of the amount of games played, and they have currently a 66% win rate with a 4.3% over rep. That is like, for those that like are looking at that stat and saying, oh yeah, the percentage dropped down or anything like that, I'm confident in saying that you have not played Mordaka into the best players out there. Right. So we are fortunate enough to have a lot of Team USA guys that come to our tournaments, that are located in Denver. And I trust their opinion pretty explicitly when they tell me something about a detachment or a unit or anything like that. And because, to be fair, it's their job, right? They're playing 3K at a very high level and they're doing so consistently. Not to say that Blaine, you and I don't. I think we definitely do, but there is a different level of 40K for those Team USA guys, especially the ones competing for spots. They unequivocally state that they apologized. I watched it happen. They apologized before games, like, I'm sorry what I'm about to do to you, but unfortunately, like, I just won the roll off for infiltrators, and you have now lost this game because you're never getting out of jail. And when you do, my Ludas just pick up everything. Everything. There is not a chance. You could put me on 6 the hit, and it does not matter. I am still getting through, right? So this detachment overall, I think, is, and we're going to touch on this later after we go through the meta, is a huge, huge boogeyman. It is a meta menace for sure. The next one up, Tactical Brigade. Not nearly as many players are playing this, but it does have 17 games played. Green Tide has 18. Warhorde is still up there. It is the next most represented out of all the detachments with 14 players and 72 games. But like I said, it is nothing compared to Mordaka with all those games that we have in and just seeing how competitive they are. This is another thing that's really interesting. They have 64% of their records are positive records. So they are winning more games than they are losing for 64% of players that are playing Orcs. Highest out of all the factions. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I know that was one of the things. I mean, I just want to touch a little bit on it. Going back to talking to those guys from Team USA and stuff, like with the Zagrod brick and infiltrators, they're like, there's a 25% chance that you just don't even have a chance when we walk up to the table. If they get to infiltrate first and they get to scout first, you are just in jail, and there's almost no armies in the game that can just, oh yeah, let me deal with that and recover on primary. It literally is. I do think there are a couple things that need towed down on it, but it's just not healthy for the game. But we'll probably circle back to it. But what's up next? Looks like we got Eldari coming in next.
Yeah,
Would have
no
thought.
surprises here. People are starting to latch on to that new detachment. I am a firm believer that Eniad is the best detachment. Like, for skill, for player base and stuff like that, and the data proves that in terms of the amount of players that are currently playing devoted to Iliad. They have the most amount of played games, which are 187, and a player count of 40, which I think is even more of an important trend in terms of what we can actually see versus like Win Rider Host, which does technically have a 75% win rate, but there's only 3 players playing it. We only have 14 games total. It is obviously doing well for those 3 players, but for the majority of individuals going to Iliad, no surprises there that this is the next faction up. The data supports that this is a very good faction, and also another detachment Iliad that I think could use some tweaks going forward. For the people, there are people out there, and I've watched a few videos of people saying like, "Oh yeah, Mordaka has play into it." I disagree with you. I think you are wrong. I have seen it played from the top players. I have seen it played against it. Unless I'm running Mordaka, I do think you are in a tough spot. Iliad has play into it. It is a huge skill expression army. It is very difficult to play. It is very easy to make mistakes with it. And at the end of the day, they are squishy elves. They still die just like squishy elves. And I do like that about them. I like the detachment as a whole. I think it's great. I think it really expresses like the faction's skill and player skill. But yeah,
Yeah, and
I'm not
I'm pretty
surprised.
sure if we saw this player count come down to like those 20 people who've really mastered it, I mean, it would be up there even higher than 63% as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. But I think that's one of those things, especially with some of an army like Eldari, where there's not a huge player count to start with. When people are flocking to something this hard, it's a very good detachment.
yeah. Nope, totally agree. Now, when GW talks about like a healthy win percentage, I will say looking between 45 and 55%, like that is that healthy win percentage. All of these other factions are within that healthy win percentage from Blood Angels at 46% all the way to Black Templars and everybody in between. I'm a firm believer in games played. I think, you need as much data as possible to make decisions on the quality of things. I do think myself, Elaine, we talk about 3K enough, and I think I'm a okay enough player to make assessments based on detachment skill, ability, and honestly rule sets to determine what is good enough out there. A lot of these armies I think are good. I think they're solid. And the one army that I think stands out the most in terms of this data is Sisters of Battle has finally jumped up into potentially a reputable percentage. Right? They're at 48%. They have 86 games played. They, like we talked about during the changes for the data slate, they've gone up a little bit, and I do like that. I like Sisters in the game. I like them being competitive. All their detachments are at about 50%, and I think that's super healthy for us, right? Hallowed Martyrs being the number one. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely nice to see them actually hopping up. It was real bleak there for a few months with the sisters. Yeah. All
Are
right.
there any factions in here that stand out to you as well in that kind of like mid-tier brick?
I really did think custodes were going to be sitting even higher. Talking about your faction, especially, I want to bring that up and let you talk about it. I mean, we got Lions players coming out of the woodwork, trying to figure it out. I do think it is going to take a little bit of time to perfect a list, but I definitely think this army and that detachment, especially, are going to start climbing. And I don't know, at least up to 52 ish. I don't think it's going to get crazy, but I think that
It is a large player base. I will say that is 49 players, 226 games. Like that is a good amount of players. And I will say Custodes just in general has a very large player base. So when a detachment comes out that's good, a lot of people are playing it, right? And that makes sense. Overall, we have a lot of factions, or sorry, a lot of detachments that are good. Shield hosts, I still rate really highly. Talons, still rate really highly. I was never a huge fan of Solar, but people are still running it, so it's good. I think it's fine. So you have a lot of players playing a lot of games, and it's at a good percentage. I will say, like Lions, you're right. We need to figure it out, and I think more time will tell. And then when the meta from the top end comes down a little bit, all the other factions are going to bump up, right? All the factions that are losing to Orcs or losing to Iliad, right? Like when those just get toned down slightly, all the other factions are going to bump up in terms of what they are capable of achieving. So I think they're perfectly fine. Lions is a good army that I don't think is broken in any way. I think it's like very good, and it's going to cause a lot of people a lot of problems because if you can't deal with 2 up, 4 up with toughness 6 and 7, you're gonna have a bad time because I'm running right now. I have like 20 between custodian, guard, warden models on the board. So can you kill 20 toughness 6, 2 up, 4 up, half of them being -1 to wound if your strength is greater, and then 4 up, feel no pain potentially, and a character in there. Yeah, can you kill that? That's a question you might have to be able to answer very, very soon. Yeah, I think it's fine. Now, Astro Militarum lane, they're higher, so they must be better than Custodes. They're at 51%.
Yeah,
Talk to me about them,
51%
dude. Are they good?
overall. They're not bad. Siege Regiment right now is sitting with a 60%, but it has 4 players with 20 games played. But the big winner, and I have said this from when the book dropped, Combined Arms is still the best detachment, and it is sitting at 57%. And that's with 18 players and 89 games. It is the most represented, just ahead of Hammer, but the lethals are still just too good. Can't give them up, in my opinion. It might have some bland strats, as some people like to say, particularly Matt. But I'll take a great army rule that helps me deal with tough targets, because that's the biggest problem for guard. And unless you want to be spamming vanquishers, you just and even then, I don't like it, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
combined arms, it's the way to go. It's the way you should be playing. It's the most all around, in my opinion. Play whatever you find fun, obviously, but I mean, I think towards the top, combined arms still just sneaks it, because it's the most versatile, and Dorns are great right now. It allows you to take them and still deal with big targets with just the sheer number of shots. So
Yeah. I mean, there's other detachments that are up there. AdMech, even though it has a smaller player count with only 23 players, it does have 120 games played. Chaos Space Marines is still a good detachment. Chaos Knights, Death Guard, Blood Angels, right? We're looking at, let's see, how many total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20 armies that are within the quote unquote healthy range of 45 to 55%, which I think is great. Like, I've seen this graph from, and for those that don't know, we're pulling this information off StatCheck. I'll put a link in the video. You need to go check them out. If you want to look at statistics, this site is awesome, incredible. I will never stop promoting them. They do a great job of collating this information for us to look at in a very nerdy way. But that many armies being within that range, I think is really interesting. I think it provides a lot of value, but I will say with confidence, this doesn't actually reflect what armies are good. Like Tau is technically below 45%, but I know 2 guys, John Kilcommons and Matt Merle, who are 2 of the best Tau players in the country, who, if they took Auxiliary Cadre, I would be confident them taking that into almost any matchup that isn't named Mordaka.
I mean, I also think too, I find it really curious. The other thing, if you look at all of those that are in the underperforming, right? Almost every one of them is ran mostly as a shooting army, right? And into the things that are really good right now, you don't want to be those things. Not really. Like Tau into a devoted or into DACA, it doesn't feel great. We've been told that, if you want to deal with more DACA, you put the pressure on. How are they going to put pressure on? It just really is hard for a lot of those bottom armies to really interact with those top ones. And that's going to affect your top players going, okay, well, I'm going to shelve this for a while, because if I run into these like top armies, I just don't stand a chance. And I think that's a big thing. Space Marines obviously just have a huge player count. Generally, they perform a little better than, a lot of people can run them. But again, and Deathwatch, we said, is one of the best armies that you can run. But in the current meta, if they drop in front of either of those armies, they just die.
Yeah, that's true. I think like a squad of Ludas picks up one of my Deathwatch bricks, right? I think that's almost guaranteed. And my Deathwatch bricks are like 300 freaking points. So it's like, that's not a trade I want to do. Like, I don't want to pick up a truck. No, no, probably not.
Yeah. The other things that are doing kind of well, I did find interesting, was Chaos Demons. We talked a fair amount about the new Shadow Legion, and it has been doing pretty well. It is above that mark. It's at 56%, and it's pretty well represented with 26 players and 125 games. Like, it's doing good. Like, and they're still figuring it out. I think that's going to be another one that kind of sticks towards the top and is actually getting enough representation for us to be like, yeah, yeah, that is a good detachment.
Yeah. I mean, my group is evaluating it for teams. I don't know where, like, it's okay for teams. I think it doesn't have enough good matchups. But if we talk about 8 players, right, like maybe Chaos Demons could find a way in there, and help us out. So Chaos Demons, super solid, really like them. Imperial Knights is up there too. And I'll be honest, like I still don't understand it. I don't understand how it's that high, but I will say like stat checks are still a thing, right? Like Lane, you and I have talked about it multiple times. Like your army, you have to be cognizant of what stat checks you can go up into. Imperial Knights is definitely one of them. Can you kill like can you kill 6 war dogs? Can you kill 10 war dogs? Can you kill Canis and a bunch of war dogs, right? But the tech that I think is making the most difference right now for Imperial Knights is allying Sisters of Battle. The Immolator and Strip and Cover are making the difference for that detachment and keeping them at the top, because that was a huge problem they had before, and they have solved it very interestingly with Sisters of Battle allied in.
Yeah, it definitely has been some good tech since they reformed how the Imperial agents worked, and people have been starting to throw that in and really figured it out. They haven't been overpowering, but it's just a good stat check, and they had that extra little bit of tech has made them way more consistent for sure on their performances.
Absolutely. Okay, well, kind of gone over the meta. No surprises there. Let's go to the X and ones, because this is actually very valuable information for like people evaluating an army. Because yes, okay, we have a win rate of whatever 64%. Well, what does that mean, Lane? What does that mean, Phil? What 64%? That means 64% of their games they've won. But that isn't a good metric. So I will say this overall, right? Like when Lane and I did our meta rankings, we said the probability of an army going X and one. That is actually the better identifier for us when we're saying like this army is good or not. Because when we talk about like round 2 of a 2-day GT, like I'm gonna be relatively confident if you went undefeated day 1, there's no more baby seals in day 2. Right? Like everyone is like the majority of people are squared away. This is not their first tournament. They're going 3-0, they're going 4-0, and it's not just by luck. We're talking about some very, very good players playing at a very, very high level. So to go X and 1, especially when you go 4-0 or 3-0 and then you manage to like have a good shot at winning a tournament, that's actually the difference maker, right? And that's a little different than, losing earlier on in the tournament and then ending up X and 1, which is still admirable. It's still an awesome thing, right, to be able to do that. But we want to evaluate armies on their capabilities to go X and 1. So looking at this information, Mordaka, and this I believe unequivocally supports what Lane and I are saying, that Mordaka is not good for the meta. Out of 50 players playing Mordaka, 50 players, 20 of them went X and 1, which means 40%, which is the highest percentage out of any detachment. Yep, any detachment. The closest is Eldari at 23% of players are going X and 1 out of a total of 20. And that's the highest that they got. But 40% for Mordaka, those players are going X and 1. That is an insane stat. If you look at that and you say, okay, Mordaka is balanced, or like we just need to get better to play into Mordaka, I don't agree with you. Because evaluating that detachment, evaluating the stratagems, the units, the army rule, right? You're giving them +2 to hit statistically, right? And that's if they don't skew up and they roll a couple extra 6s. And now I don't understand. I don't understand how you could say this is good for the meta. You as a tournament organizer, would you allow this in your tournament?
So, funny thing, I have a tournament this weekend. It's even just like a casual, it's 3-man teams. We're doing the good, the bad, the Xenos. And I banned the shit out of this. As soon as somebody else did, I was like, all right, I don't feel so bad about it. Because it is insanely gross. And the one player who I was like really not wanting to bring it is Ryan, who came on to talk to us, talk with us about this detachment. And he's on my team. And I'm like, no, you are not bringing this to this tournament, because we're here to have fun, and that's just not a fun matchup for anybody. So yeah, I was like, I am Xing this from the tournament. I hope that they do nerf it in a way that the detachment is still viable, but at the end of the day, it's got to get tuned down. It really does.
So I think this is important for our viewers out there. You may have different beliefs in terms of like whether this detachment needs to be like banned altogether or nerfed or whatever the case is. I've seen plenty of comments from like, just trust GW. Like play in the meta that they've given us and trust in them, they will change it because it takes time to make changes in the meta. What I think is more important is sending a message to GW saying, hey, like, we spend a lot of money playing your game. We love this hobby. We love the lore. We love all of these things. And we spend a lot of money supporting you to do these things. It is your responsibility to give us a balanced rule set to do it. Because if we talk about, just from experience, who's going to spend the most amount of money, playing this game, doing this hobby, engaging in this hobby, it is the players, and the players want a good product. And that's from the competitive guy like Folger Piles playing and going 8-1 with his Iniad, and it's me or a guy that I'm bringing to our like local meetup for the first time and saying, hey man, come play some great 40k. Come play some great 40k. And I roll him into more DACA, and he just has a miserable time and wastes 2 hours of his day that he could have been doing something else. Like, he's not going to enjoy himself. That is not good. That is not beneficial. And it's not beneficial for the meta, and it's not beneficial for tournaments. I'm not going to ask somebody to play and pay to do that, because it does have a very negative reputation. And GW owes us that. If we're going to provide all that money and they're going to make these record-breaking sales and record-breaking growth and all of these things, they need to understand that they made a mistake here, and that's okay. And the meta and we can correct it. But I'm a firm believer that it is not healthy right now.
Yeah, I do think that's one of the biggest things too, right? Is like the 33% X and 1 is insane. Like, as far as a balanced game set, when I walk up to a table, I expect you to have to master your army as much as I did. You don't even have to do that, right? You can look up a list and put in 2 games before you go to a tournament and still just clap cheeks with this detachment.
Well, it's 40%. Mordaka, 33% is for the army. 40% of Mordaka players are going X and 1.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it's just, okay. All right. You showed up here, you chased the meta, you win. Which, and there's people that chase the meta, but the things that are at the top still require some skill expression. It's just, yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. I am honestly looking forward to it. I am ready to put all this more DACA behind us, but
okay, well, that is interesting, and I do think it provides some good value on just how good Mordaka is. We can go over the X and ones for a bunch of other factions, but if you look at this, believe it or not, Adeptus Custodes has one of the highest X and 1 player percentages. Orcs is up there, right? Custodes, believe it or not, 11 players have gone X and 1. So 13% of the total 85 players, which I think is super interesting. And the majority of those are Lions players. So even if we look at the meta percentages for win rate, that isn't necessarily reflected in meta percentages for X and 1 records. And it does tell us that there's a difference there in terms of like win rate, which I find very, very interesting. Eldari, right? 35% for Iniad. No surprises there. We've already said it. Nick said it when he came on. This detachment is very, very good, and no surprises. Space Marines at the very top. 10 X and 1 players over all the detachments, as a large player pool, right? It has a very interesting place in the meta, but like we said, it could have some problems into some detachments like Orcs, like Iniad, where you shoot me, but you don't have the fight to fight me. That's a bad place to be. Probably not. Probably not work out. Yeah, but overall, I like the X and 1 records. I think there's a lot of value in here. You'll have people that'll get on, and this is for every player, right? People will get on and say, oh, so and so has an X or a 67% win rate. They're the most broken faction out there, stuff like that. That's not always necessarily true. And even when we look at the middling factions, right? Like, and you look and say, well, Adeptus Custodes is at the very bottom, Phil. You told me they were good. You said Lions were good, and they are at the bottom. I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes here. That is not the only value and the only metric for determined quality here, right? Like, new army, large player pool. And if we look at people going there and the top players, like, I am very confident that I could go X and 1 with Lions. I'm very confident that my loss would be into more DACA, but you're gonna have to take those because hopefully they get toned down a little bit. But I do think I play in Iniad. I do think overall in the meta, like, Lions is just really, really good right now, and I'm very confident with it. But that's because me and my playstyle and my experience with Custodes, like, they're an army I've had for a long time, and I love the faction. It's just where do you find it? Lane, he's talked about it before. His Bullgrins, people tell him they're awful, but he just went 4-2 at a GTs. Like, when was the last time you went 4-2 at a GT or 5-1? Right? Like, you need to evaluate those armies based on your skill set. John even said it when he came on. He's like, don't let people tell you what's bad. You need to test things and you need to work things. And same with Matt. He said the same thing. And Michael's a Team USA player. He is in the top 25 in the country. And he says, play what you are good at. Now, there are just bad units, but there are tools out there and you can find it within your detachment.
Yeah, definitely some tools to use for most armies. Some have more than others, but
That's true.
you are going to have to be ready to tech into some of these top armies. It's just a given, and this helps you actually say, what am I going to run into that's probably going to be a problem? If you haven't been using stat check, you definitely need to, because it really kind of it can shape, what you need to be bringing in your list and what you should be prepared to deal with. They say, tech for the best and play against the rest. Just try to be ready for what the spiciest thing you might see is, and hope you can outplay the other ones. So this is a great place to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll have this link down below. Any final thoughts, Lane? Anything else that stands out to you? I will say, I think we're going to see a jump in one percentage. Out of all of these, I think World Leaders is going to jump up with their new unit, their new infiltrating, whatever they're called, the infiltrating pretty much cultists. Yeah. So they can now actually protect their scout moves. It's going to help. We're not going to see a huge jump. I'm not thinking 10, 15, 20%, but I do think we're going to see an increase.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely going to help. Any good army needs infiltrate. Any army needs infiltrate, not just good ones. Every army needs infiltrate, because it's so required to take that space. I made that mistake before, never making it again. You got to have some infiltrate.
My custodians have no infiltrators. I do have scout though.
You do have scout. But to be fair, if someone wants to give you things to slingshot off of, are you really going to say no?
I am not.
Yeah.
I'm going to take those. I'm going to take those all day, day.
Yep. Yeah. But at least you have some shooting. World Eaters doesn't really. So they need to go claim some space so that they can advance safely and go get up the board for sure. Yeah. All right. I think that's all I've got, Phil. Any last comments? Anything else?
No, so we appreciate you guys all tuning in. It means a lot to us. We're almost at 200 now, right? Subscribers. That is an insane number. I can't believe there's 200 people potentially that want to hear Lane and I talk about 40K. So we love that. It's great. We are going to start doing a recurring on Wednesdays, a meta roundup. So you will be watching this tonight, and we really appreciate it. This is going to be something we do every Wednesday. What we're also going to be doing is I'm going to be taking pictures of my games, and I'm going to be doing game recaps with Lane and I. We'll talk about the decisions that I made and stuff like that, and Lane will be doing the same. So those will be coming out soon as well. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of great information there, because I'm going to be cranking out games of Lions. I have 10 planned in the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to get 10 games in, because I have like a few lists that I want to try, but one that I think I've figured it out. I think I got what we need to play Custodes at a good level. So I can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're still, learning the ropes, getting all this shit figured out, but it's going well. We're so thankful for you guys following us, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, it's been great. We're going to keep bringing out more content of different varieties, and we're just hoping to keep it growing. But yeah, it's going to be sick. All right, everybody, don't forget that victory isn't given; it's forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. And we'll see y'all next time.
Good night, guys.